Who thinks that playing video games too much can be a health problem?
I love video games.
Some people do, some people don't. Well, the World Health Organization would agree with those that raised their hand because the group recently announced that gaming disorder will officially be listed for the first time as a mental health condition in its international classification of diseases.
Yes. Wow.
And just to clarify, we are not talking about someone who's occasionally playing a video game. They define the disorder as a persistent or recurrent behavior pattern of sufficient severity to result in significant impairment in personal, family, social, educational, occupational, or other important areas of functioning. And that's what we always talk about. When something becomes a disorder, it's disrupting your life.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I greatly enjoy video games. I've been playing since I was a kid, and I still play now. And we know video games have a lot of pro-social consequences, too. It helps us develop problem solving, executive function. But of course, when anything is taken to the extreme, there can be a problem. And here's the issue why I think the ICD is starting to move this forward. It's because they're starting to find in research that the brain circuitry that's affected by video game playing is very similar to those of gambling disorder or substance use disorder, so that it kind of activates that reward center in a very intense way, makes you want to seek that out and do it again and again and again. And I think the second reason is that people are using it to escape reality, to run away from their problems and to modulate their negative emotions. And in that way, it's very similar to substance use disorders and gambling disorder too, which are already established diagnoses.
But Dr. Judy, is the condition playing the video games, or is that just a symptom of a deeper issue, maybe like depression or anxiety or some other psychological disorder? That's what I'm a little confused about. And I know that there's some controversy over this determination by the World Health Organization.
They're comparing it to any other addiction.
And these are all really good points, because we have people who, this is sort of an underlying something else, like a depression, anxiety, driving them to use video games as escape. But then we have another group of people who are actually being amplified by that particular video game. And research does show that online video gaming, where you adopt the identity of the character, is more addicting than, you know, like your puzzle games, like Tetris.
Yes.
It's just a different type of thing, because you start to adopt that identity and you like that life better, so you ignore your real life.
The one thing I will say about video gaming is at least you're not harming other people. A lot of other addictions, you know, whether drugs, alcohol, what have you, it's pretty easy to potentially engage in harmful behavior. But this is really...
Well, video games are very violent. And then it begs the question, is this stimulating people towards violent behavior?
Yeah.
I think we've got to point out the controversy, because not all of the experts agree with this determination that this is a psychological disorder. And I know the gaming industry feels as if they didn't have an opportunity to weigh in, and other stakeholders. So I think it's important to note that there's some controversy about these findings.
And to your point, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual that is published by the American Psychiatric Association, this is just listed as an area for further study, so it's not a diagnosis. And to your point, Dr. Ordon, about that violence, we do find some evidence that it does amplify their proclivity towards violence in their real life. So we do have to be careful with certain types of games. I think the goal really is to help people to adapt more social behavior. So take that limit. If you're a parent, put a limit on your children's video game time and teach them other ways to address any negative emotions that they're feeling, boredom. You know, give them access to other hobbies. Just expose them to other types. You raise an interesting point, though. Where do you stop making these formal diagnoses? Because we know an addiction to social media is bad for you.
But Judy, but what about kids who are on their cell phones, their smartphones, who literally, we see studies every 3 minutes? Are we going to put them in treatment?
Well, and this is where parenting plays a huge role. You shouldn't be allowing your child to play and have access to that device.
But we're talking about, should this be a psychological disorder for which you can seek reimbursement for insurance or get medical treatment?
And I would say that there's research that shows that the more they're exposed to video games at such an early age, the more it impairs their attention and concentration and executive functions. And at that point, it is a treatable condition. And so maybe for a small group of the population, when you start to develop that, it is something that's...
It's ironic that video games or gaming may be considered a medical diagnosis, and yet recently we talked about video games being used to help kids who may have attention deficit disorder.
Kids who have developmental disabilities.
It's remarkable. And so I think what it comes down to is, like all things in life, we talk about alcohol. Alcohol can be beneficial in moderation, very negative consequences when overused. This is maybe the case with everything from video gaming to social media, and we all need to be smart about it, but it's remarkable how many of these things now you can consider addictive. And so I think video games can be great, but just be careful. If you're playing them at the exclusion of every other meaningful thing in your life, maybe time to go talk to a professional.
Come and see me.